I remember 2016. Why do I bring up 2016? Well, for one, let me go ahead and warn you. Today's episode of Confessional is going to be a little bit more negative than normal. Why? Because this is a post-game reaction after the New Orleans Saints just lost to the Atlanta Falcons, who, by the way, now have sole possession of the all-time lead of who wins the most games in our matchups. But why do I bring up 2016? Well, 2016 was not the worst year in team history. They finished 7-9. And they definitely started off worse. But it just felt like that year, they found ways to lose the game. Now, I'm not trying to be too dramatic here because obviously you had two fantastic wins to start the season. Then you had a tough win against a playoff caliber opponent last week who doesn't look very playoff caliber today going against Tampa Bay, but Tampa's a much better team than myself included have given them credit for. Then you lose a tough one today against a division rival. And yeah, it's a division game. Division games are always going to be tough. Yada, yada, yada. I say it all the time. Doesn't matter today. Looking for ways to lose. And look, I don't feel like the defense played terrible. Kirk Cousins ends up 21 for 35, 238 yards and a pick. Right? Algier and Robinson combined like throughout the day for 88 yards. They only ran the ball 15 times. Offensively, you can tell they're missing Eric McCoy. You can tell losing Taysom Hill hurt them. But still, they had a chance to win this entire game. There's ways to point fingers everywhere, right? Paulson Debo, known for being a guy who gets penalties. You can argue whether that's valid or not, but a reputation follows you. And if you're known for that, you're going to get looked at for that. And very clearly, Marshawn Lattimore is respected. He didn't give up a catch this game and only got targeted twice, I believe. They'll let Paulson Debo to get picked on. And yet, through all that, New Orleans still, quote-unquote, should have won this game. Right? You start off strong, TD, after the interception, get a TD, happy with that. Then you throw an interception, which, look, I don't think Derek Carr had a great game today, but I'm not blaming that on Derek Carr. That was one of those freak interceptions that used to happen to Drew Brees and stuff. Those things happen. So I'm not going to fret too much on that, right? I'm not going to get on Derek Carr for that one. Now, did Derek Carr miss some passes today? Yes. But that one is not on Derek Carr. But what is on the New Orleans Saints is Rashid Shaheed giving up a touchdown, not because I am not okay with mistakes. Mistakes happen. But let me go ahead and throw out my opinion real quick. This is opinion. And this is a post-game. I'm allowed to be emotional. Judge me at your own will. I really don't care. I think Rashid Shaheed's let that I'm this good, I'm all pro, I'm Pro Bowl get to his head a little bit. Why do I say that? Rev, why? You're just mad. Maybe. But this is something taught all the way back. I'm smacking my green screen. All the way back in junior high. Pee-wee ball. They punt the ball inside the 10. Let it go. Why are you fielding a ball at the 4-yard line? Right? Why are you fielding a punt at the 4-yard line? Back in high school, let it go. Now, hey, maybe it's a special rule. Maybe Darren Rizzi and Phil Galliano come out and say today in a press conference, hey, we just trust him so much. We just say, hey, do what you feel is right. But of every play that has happened in the first 4 weeks of this season, that's the one that angers me the most. That's what upsets me the most. And I'm truly, look, I know it happened at the very beginning of the game. I think that cost the game. That gave momentum completely in Atlanta's favor, in their home. And look, we love to hate on Atlanta, but let's not sit here and pretend like home field advantage isn't a thing. Right? This man gave a touchdown, and yeah, offense came back, went 70 yards down the field and scored. Great, but you still started from a deficit. And if you remember, one of the things I talked about why Klint Kubiak's offense was so good in the first two games, and I mentioned this, is the whole premise of Kubiak's offense and a lot of the West Coast system is to build an early lead and then grind it out, right? Even the New Orleans offense in its prime was like that. They wanted to score fast and then run it down your throat in the second half. And if you look at the individual pieces of the New Orleans offense today, they didn't do poorly, right? Offensively, you ran 33 times, you got 131 yards and 3 rushing TDs. Losing Taysom Hill was huge. Huge. Example, Derek Carr trying to rush it up the middle twice to score a touchdown. Clearly not Drew Brees. Clearly not Taysom Hill. Right? There's a lot that went wrong. Normally we do quarter by quarter breakdown, but this is a divisional opponent. I think y'all know the divisional opponent, and we're just going to speak our minds with how things are. If you have comments, I'll read them. We'll get to them. But the biggest thing for me comes down to how this game started. Because even defensively, you think about this, defensive fans, Saints fans out there, thinking, oh, this defense might be cooked. This defense, they give up 12 points. Think about that. Your defense gave up 12 points and you lost. Again, I'm not going to blame Derek Carr for the pick six because that was just a fluke play. Sometimes those happen, and sometimes things just don't go your way. But the biggest one was that muff punt for a TD. All because of when and how it happened. I'm okay with mistakes. For Rashid Shaheed, whether it's you getting into your own head and thinking that you really are the ability to be everything, or whether it was a horrible call by Darren Rizzi and Phil Galliano saying that you can field a punt inside the 10, 5-yard line, that is the catalyst that led to this loss. Now, there are other things to blame. We can definitely talk about the pass rush. It's still not good. It's okay, but it's pass rush. It's still not good. I feel like Paulson Debo had a good game, but for Paulson Debo to have a great game, you cannot let your guy just get picked on. And the defense let him get picked on. I mean, he led the team in tackles. He had 3 pass deflections. He had an interception. In all mathematical senses, like when you come back and look at the first 4 weeks of Paulson Debo, just in terms of analytics, pass catch rate, quarterback rating when throwing against you, Paulson Debo has done very, very well. But at the same time, when you watch him, you can tell that he is not an elite corner. Like, he's not Marshawn Lattimore, fully healthy, fully primed. And that's not me hating on a Debo. There's nothing wrong with being the best number 2 corner in the NFL. But being the best number 2 corner means that you're, by extension, not an elite number 1. He's not terrible. But when you let the team just focus on him this much, bad things are going to happen, which is why he had multiple penalties called on him. He has, over the past 4 years with New Orleans, Paulson Debo is one of the main players who generates penalties. And in terms of defensive backs, he's your most penalized player. You cannot let him just simply get targeted and targeted and targeted. You rotate safeties. You run more cover 6, more match coverages, finding ways to get him off islands. I don't feel like they did enough of that. Now, maybe we'll watch the All-22, and it wasn't that way. And I will say that I know nobody wants to be positive right now, but you just lost 2 games with a total of 4 points. That's not the end of the world, right? And at the beginning of the season, I said, if we went 2-2, I'm fine. So technically, I'm fine. Because let's just add to the mythos, the drama that is. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs. 4-0, 3-0, but have they looked like the Kansas City Chiefs? No. But at the same time, look at Tampa. Beating the brakes off Philly. And I do believe Philly matches up with us well based on what they want to do defensively and offensively better than Tampa does. I just feel like Philly is a team that we don't want to face very often just because of how they play football. Styles are a thing. We got the brakes beat off of them by Tampa. Baker Mayfield playing at a very high level, right? But even then, 4 points. 4 points. John says mistakes all over. Is it just me or does DA's defense always fold in close games like this? And see, even that's tough for me, Sean. And here's why. I know I just talked about helping a Debo, and I still stand by that. But you look at the end of that game, right? Look at where that drive started. And I'm in the wrong one. For those watching on the screen, my bad. All right, look at where that drive started. Let's just use the last drive as an example. Did the defense do bad? Short pass for 5 yards. Remember, there's only a minute left. You'll take that all day long. Offensive penalty. Derek Cousins incomplete. There's the penalty on a Debo. A Debo did do PI on that one. Don't be misconstrued. A Debo absolutely performed pass interference. Incomplete. Right. Where's the blame that should go on Allen? The only blame, if there is any, is that he did not put enough help for a Debo. But let's also remember, Honey Badger left this game. Willie Gay left this game. Alontae Taylor at some point, though he did come back, left this game. This team is just falling to the injury bug, but I don't think this is on Dennis Allen. That's your players need to play ball. And look, again, defensively, they gave up 12 points. The Atlanta offense, this is the saddest stat you'll hear all week from all your Falcons fans. Falcons just beat you and never scored an offensive touchdown. You'll look at the scoreboard and go, oh, well, Kirk Cousins had a good game. No, he didn't. Oh, Bijan Robinson ran all over you. No, that didn't happen. That's not what happened. Mistakes. Look, it's not very often that I'll be like, look, you beat yourself. But when you give up 14 points, and even though I'm not blaming Derek Carr for the pick six, it still happened. You didn't allow an offensive touchdown. And see, that's why I'm not super hard on Dennis Allen. I will critique Dennis Allen and say, yo, you see Paulson Debo getting picked on, we got to try something, right? Do something to alleviate that. But at the same time, I'm not going to look at DA and be like, you lost the game. No. I'm not going to do that, but that's rough. Yeah, it's Younghoe Koo, and then mistakes, right? Mistakes. And I hate to do the cliche, you got to clean up, you do, but hurts really bad when it's losing to the Atlanta Falcons. Now, I know that to me as a fan, but it hurts extra. And to keep out, Carolina just lost to Cincy. Cincy finally got a win. Who expected Cincy to enter into the season to be 0-3, and the only win they have is giving up 24 points to the Carolina Panthers, by the way, but beating Carolina. New Orleans has a really bad injury problem right now. And I do think that's contributing to their losses. Losing Eric McCoy definitely is contributing. Derek Carr is playing worse. Again, I don't think he played bad today, but he didn't look like the first 2 weeks. Why? Pressure. It's not even close. This offensive line is not playing how they were the first 2 weeks. Losing Eric McCoy has been huge with that. And don't forget, you didn't have Cesar Ruiz either. That's playing into that. Taysom Hill plays into that. You can tell this offense doesn't have the short yardage option, especially with a hurting offensive line, if Taysom Hill's not there. Because Taysom Hill had 6 touches in like the first 2 drives and then leaves due to an abdomen injury. So now Ryan says, I'll be honest, only been a fan since 2018, so I always find the Bucs more of a rival. Don't worry, that'll change. Tampa just went through a little short spurt where they had Tom Brady. You're probably not going to experience that same rivalry for very long. But I respect new fans coming in. I love that. So if you aren't feeling that bad about today, I'm envious of you. I truly am envious of you. James says you got Jamal Williams for short yardage. You got Jamal Williams. Is Jamal Williams as good as Taysom Hill? No. Like, I'm not trying to be Jamal Williams' biggest hater. I'm not. But I'm sorry, Jamal Williams is... If Kendre Miller was healthy, and I don't know if that man ever be healthy, Jamal Williams would be my running back 3. I'm not trying to be the hater, dude. I'm really not. But Taysom Hill is your short yardage back, and you can see that by the fact that that's how they use him. Jamal Williams is now your change of pace back. And the difference being Jamal Williams is there to spell guys that are needing an extra breath, like AK, who, by the way, had another fantastic day. 19 carries, 77 yards. That's a 4 average. Did get a tutty, and then contributed with 7 receptions, 42 yards in the passing game. He will most likely end your week again as the NFL's scrimmage yard leader. And he's, by the way, now tied his touchdown total from when Pete Carmichael was here. Which, again, crazy stat, FYI. But if you remember, last season, 6 total touchdowns in 13 games. This year, 4 games, 6 tutties. Shout out to Alvin Kamara for getting used correctly by Clint Kubiak. And again, Clint Kubiak's not infallible. And if you remember, and sometimes we can all do this. We can build expectations too quickly. Clint Kubiak, first time being an OC with New Orleans, second time ever being an OC, but he's new at it. Couldn't expect 40-plus points every game. But what you can expect, and in my opinion, this is what is the difference between the 2 wins and 2 losses. In the 2 wins, New Orleans were a very good, fundamentally sound team. The past 2 weeks, they have not been fundamentally sound. All right? To me, that's the biggest difference. They have not played fundamentally well in week 3 and week 4, and they lost close matchups. In week 1 and week 2, the only real difference, in my opinion, is every fundamental, where it was blocking, route running, in terms of matching coverages, in terms of pattern matching with routes. Fundamentally great for 2 weeks. Fundamentally not good these past 2 weeks. That's the difference. This team has got to go back to playing fundamentally good football. It's my first day. Says, man, I'm getting buku phone calls from Falcons fans right now. This hurts. Damn buzzers. Agreed. But I'm going to give them their credit, right? They found a way to win football. They found a way. And there was good technique there. What's some of the good technique? Targeting Paulson and Debo. And again, you go into the advanced analytics after this game. You're going to be like, oh, well, he's playing fine. And he truthfully is. But as a defensive coordinator, if you got a guy getting picked on, you got to try something. And maybe they felt like they couldn't try something because they had backup safeties out there. You had backup corners out there. Maybe they felt like they just had to hope a Debo balled out. And I felt like a Debo was good. He just didn't ball out. Because, by the way, coming into this game, he has had 2 interceptions now. He's only given up 1 touchdown. And he's giving up a quarterback rating of 80 when targeted. It's actually gone down after this game. It's going to be around 70. So Paulson Debo, when getting targeted, is giving up a rating of 70. But at the same time, this is why we talk about you can't box score scouts. So many people do that. They'll get on Twitter or whatever. They'll look at box scores and oh, well, clearly Paulson Debo is your best corner. This is why context is so big. But Debo's a number 2, and he's a damn good number 2. But there's also the thing of he shouldn't be leading your team in tackles. He shouldn't be putting in situations that he's going to give you more penalties, which he does lead DBs since he got here in penalties. You got to find a way. You got to find a way to overcome this. All right. David says, we all love our Houdatts, but they were just guaranteed to do something to make us mad, aren't they? Losing to the Dirty Birds, this sucks. I'm right there with you, man. Never going to be happy about that. Tim says, man, I got to say, Debo, when games on the line, loses himself. This isn't the first time. Remember Cordero Patterson? Like, is this just routine now, or should there be consequences? Well, I think it's a good question. Let me answer that question truthfully. Should there be consequences? Because to me, when I hear consequences, the only thing I can think of is benching. Should Paulson Debo be benched? No. Emphatic no. Why can I say emphatically no? Because of what I just told you. Through 4 games this season, he's given up a quarterback rating of like 70, and he has 2 picks, and he's given up 1 touchdown. So absolutely not should he be benched. But should they make sure that they don't allow things like this to happen again, as in he's getting targeted 20-plus times in a game? He's clearly being picked on? No, you have to find a way to help out your players. You're only as good as your weakest link. And I will still stand that this team has one of the best defensive back rooms in the entire NFL. And even today's game shows that. Again, you did not allow an offensive touchdown. But at the same time, you cannot put guys in a position to be picked on. And that's exactly what happened in this game. Paulson Debo got picked on. Debo says, we beat ourselves doing stuff outside our character, not sweating it. We're a better team than them when healthy. I agree with you. But at the same time, you are now 3rd in the NFC South. Again, I'm not trying to be a hater. I was being honest. Like, we can stand on that. And what you said isn't wrong. But that doesn't change the fact that you only play 17 games in a season. You only play 6 games in your division. And you're now in 3rd place in your division. The only team you've won against in the division is the Carolina Panthers. And you now have racked up a division loss. That matters. And yeah, you are the better team on paper. Not arguing that. You've actually scored 9 more touchdowns than your opponent, which if you look across the league, quite good. Tied with the Buffalo Bills as the best. That's good. But you got to win games. What's the difference between the New Orleans Saints and the Buffalo Bills? The New Orleans Saints are 2-2. Buffalo Bills are 3-0. So while I 100% agree with your statement, you got to win games. Now, Godfather, this is why I was big on getting Cousins, because he has our number. Sean was great at getting setting a tempo with play calling. Kubiak should run more 3-step drops to help speed up Carr's clock. Now, here's how I will tell y'all that the end of the world is not here. Because Godfather just came in. For anybody who's a regular on this show, y'all know Godfather's been a long-time supporter. Godfather's also been notoriously negative. And after a loss to the Falcons, Godfather didn't come in and say this team's going 3-14. Shows that this is not the end of the league. This is not the end of everything. This team still has the ability and will win a lot more games. I truly believe that, right? Derek Carr is amazing at play action. It's really tough to run play action when you have 2 starting interior offensive linemen out. Right? I'm not saying Cesar Ruiz is the best player in the world, but it matters. Aaron McCoy was playing at an insane level through 2 games. That matters. Well, when you lose your 2 best interior offensive linemen, play action is probably going to take a dip, and that did. Right? So you've got to get back to being healthy. You've got to get back to being the team that was dominating. And that's going to take getting healthy and take time and playing fundamentally sound football. Your next 2 games are huge. Kansas City, in Kansas City, and then at home against Tampa, which I'll be honest, Tampa is playing fundamentally good football. Baker Mayfield does not look special. I've actually gone back and watched 2 of their games on all 22. Baker Mayfield doesn't look special, but he looks like he's executing the offense exactly how they ask him to do. And they're playing fundamentally well as a team. They're playing fundamentally good football, right? Their loss against Denver was very fluky last week. It was very confusing. But even then, I don't feel like Baker played horrible. I think Baker is just playing very well, fundamentally sound, executing the offense. They beat Philly today. Now they got to go to Atlanta. And Lord knows I can't root against Atlanta. Or I'm sorry, I can't root for Atlanta. So that means I want Tampa to start off 4-1. It's going to be tough. You got to win your games. So, got to win your games. New Orleans 24-hour rule, ignore it, move on. But you've lost. I'm sorry, it was 5 points. I said 4 points earlier. You've lost your past 2 games by 5 points. This is not a team that's getting blown out. This is not a team that's getting dominated. You know, I mentioned Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay got dominated by the Denver Broncos. All right, now they've done a really good job as well, but New Orleans just has to win. So, you got to win your games. Got to win your games. Paul Sadiba's been bad these last 2 weeks, but again, I don't think he has, Trey. I don't think Paul Sadiba's been bad. I think Paul Sadiba's been Paul Sadiba, which is a very good number 2. But if you were curious on whether Paul Sadiba should be paid as like the number 1, and you can use Adebo as a reason to let Lattimore walk, no. No. But I do think this is still a good team. Got to win your games. Michael says a win's a win was an indication of the rest of the season. Can absolutely be. Can absolutely be. And again, you look at what happened with Atlanta. They lost a close one against Pittsburgh. They lost a close one against Kansas City, and they won that nail-biter in week 2 against Philly. Right? Now they just beat us. So Atlanta's been putting up a better team. And look, I said early this year, the NFC South, worst division in football. That's not true. Astro says rewatch film, Philly dominate. I do. That's actually what I do. So Philly did not dominate because by that same argument, New Orleans dominated. I mean, you gave up 12 points. I'm sorry, you gave up 15 points. Your offense did not do well, but let's stop pretending like the Saints defense was not very, very good. If all you care about is yardage, which I've always said, it's okay to judge an offensive ranking by yards because that's how productive and efficient you are. But defensively, all that ends up mattering is points. Points, points, points. Do you give up points? That's all that matters is defense. I don't care if you give up 500 yards a game if you gave up 5 field goals. Oh, what did they do? They gave up 5 field goals. Cool. I'll live with it. I'll live with it. So, Saints, still a good team. Today's a heartbreaker. It's against the Falcons. Still a good team. Kubiak is showing Pete Carmichael level incompetence and Sean Payton level stubbornness at times in his play selection. I don't agree with that at all. Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. Yeah, no. Definitely not. I think that's an overreaction after losing to a division rival, which is fine, but that's a complete overreaction. And White Wolf does bring up a good point. For anybody talking about Paul Sebo, clearly does not remember when your starters were Fred Thomas and Jason David. So, y'all got to chill. Y'all got to chill. You're talking about a team that we as a community, it's not like I'm just trying to chill on y'all. As a community, every single person here was like, if they can start off 2-2, we're fine. Everybody here said that. But the 2 games that everybody picked us to win were Carolina and Atlanta. I remember it. Now, I can't speak for every individual person here. But I remember a majority, and I talked to a lot of y'all on the Discord. I remember Y'all said we had to start off 2-2 for you to have any level of hope. And you said we'd beat the Panthers and the Falcons and we'd lose to the Cowboys and the Eagles. Right? That's what everybody said. That's what everybody said. You're 2-2 still. In fact, when it comes to the first 6 games, people talked about being 3-3, huge win. So now we see what happens. D says teams need to be held accountable. No excuse for losing these type of games. You find a way to win when you're not jumping out to lead. And I agree. You do need to find a way to win. And that's like I said. What made this team good for the first 2 weeks and losing the past 2? Fundamental football. There's nothing in particular that, they're not a turnover team, right? They're not allowing a ton of turnovers. They're not failing it in the red zone. They just simply need to stop making mistakes. Play fundamentally well. What happened to all the Super Bowl talk? Never happened here, Israel. So you can troll on somewhere else. Ain't nobody here said that. I've been very clear. We ain't talking Super Bowl. Not at all. Koji said you spotted them 14. It was a not play action. A interference call from winning. It's true. I mean, you played a good game against an opponent and you lost, but you can't spot them 14. You just can't. Yeah, this is the Who Dat Confessional podcast. We focus on film study and analytics. Nobody here was preaching Super Bowl. Now, if we make it in the playoffs, sure, I'll bring up the two words that everybody loves to talk about way too much in the season. But you ain't never caught this channel being like, oh, we went 2-0, we going to the Super Bowl. We had fun, and you can have excitement, but I think most people here know what this team is. Now, it burns, as High Rise Cartel points out, because it's the Falcons. You lost to your division rival. I mean, there's nothing like that. I mean, Green Bay is the same way. Like, if Green Bay, during all their successes the past 2 years, past 2 decades, lose to Chicago, it kills you because it's Chicago. Right? You lose to Atlanta, you're never going to feel good about it. Godfather says, Deuce, I think we beat Kansas City 34-30 next week. Just got a feeling weather will actually help us this time. We'll see. The biggest thing is, can this team play fundamentally well? You can't spot them 14 points. Because the defense, again, if you're just doing, and this is why we don't do analytics alone, because box score scouting ain't good, no matter how you look at it. But after leaving this game, the New Orleans Saints came into this game defensively the 5th best team in the NFL in points allowed. Top 5. Did they leave this game making you think they're not a top 5 defense? I don't leave this game thinking they're not a top 5 defense. They managed to hold an offense to 12 points, missing multiple starters. Demario Davis, Willie Gay. You had Lon Taylor go down during it. Honey Badger went out. And you still held the Atlanta Falcons offense, which is full of studs, by the way. I hate to say what I'm about to say. Atlanta's offense is studs. John Robinson, Tyler Algier are studs. Those are maybe the best running back combo in the NFL. Drake London and Kyle Pitts. And I will laugh at them for taking a tight end in the first round for the rest of my life. But let's not pretend like Kyle Pitts is not a... We would love to have Kyle Pitts. Everybody here would like the New Orleans Saints to have Kyle Pitts. Drake London, we laughed at him because, he's not Chris Olave. He's still a damn good wide receiver. It's not like Atlanta sucks. Their offensive line also has Pro Bowlers on it. So your defense held them to 12. Just don't lose your damn game. Don't kick yourself while you're down. Don't give them 14 points. I don't leave this going, this defense is not what I thought they were. This defense is exactly what I thought they were. Defense was good. Defense held them for 36% on 3rd down. Didn't let them score in the red zone. 315 total yards. 12 offensive points. I'm not on the defense on this one. We could call out individual players. Hey, Paulson Debo got targeted. But good teams win games. Offense got to score more points. Special teams, you can't be giving away points. Right? I'd be very surprised if you see Rashid Shaheed throughout the rest of the year anywhere near 10-yard line on punts. I doubt you see it the rest of the year. Maybe they do. Maybe they, to instill confidence in him, they let him do it again. But back in high school, 10, you let it go. You don't try to feel the daggum thing. Here we are. Shout out to T-Rex. Appreciate you. This loss is more pathetic than last week. We lose because of self-inflicted mistakes. This sound is making me angry. He's got to read the game better. I hate Younghoe Koo as my rival, but love him as a fantasy player. I appreciate the honesty there, T-Rex. And I don't disagree with you. This loss for me is worse than Philly because it was a self-inflicted loss. You lost to Philly because Philly came out and just played better football than you. And you lost. And you lost a nail-biter close one. That's what Philly was. This one is one of the rare times Rev will be like, yeah, New Orleans beat themselves. And that is not an insult to Atlanta. But when you hold Atlanta's offense to 12 points, you've beat them. But Rev, they scored 26. Yeah, that's my point. Your mistakes scored more points for the Atlanta Falcons than the Atlanta Falcons scored. That hurts way more than losing to Philly. At the same time, if you're talking about things that can be fixed during the season, these are the easiest things to be fixed. And God knows if we got to get mistakes in, let's get the mistakes in right now. Let's get the mistakes in right now. Douglas says, everybody's a stud in the NFL. That doesn't matter. You need a pass rush to win games. Plain and simple. Team will not be a top 5 if they don't get their pass rush going. I mean, I do agree with you that the pass rush is not as good as I want it to be. And I said that coming into this season, that even with Chase Young, I still don't feel like they're there. And even Dennis Allen, after last week's game, had to talk about, hey, Cameron Jordan just probably going to see less snaps. They definitely need to upgrade their pass rush. And I do think that Dennis Allen should return to what he was doing in the first couple of weeks, which is heavy blitzing to make up for that. I don't care if Alontae Taylor has to lead my team in sacks. You better get more pressure on the quarterback. I still think this is a top 5 defense without an elite pass rush, which is crazy. It just really speaks to how DB is in such an underrated position. I'm talking about the entire DB room. Because we always talk corners, but to play how this defense has, you got to be great as a group and as a unit. But you're all right. Got to win games. You got to win games. And Malcolm was also right. Good offenses aren't held to 13 points or completely fail to maintain the top. And I think the offense did solid, but solid's not good enough. You need them to be good. And you saw some of those problems for the offense creeping in this game, where you've got third down being 54%, which is okay, but that's not dominating. 25 first downs is okay, but it's not dominating. Mistakes, though. You can't give up 14 points of mistakes. D-line wins championships? Not necessarily. There have been a lot of Super Bowl teams that did not have elite D-lines, and even recently. But is it good to have? Absolutely. Do you want it? Absolutely. What's more important than an elite D-line is an elite O-line. That's being real. This team needs a healthy offensive line. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have an elite D-line. Everybody here will agree with me that you want an elite D-line. But what you need more than anything is a very good offensive line. If you could pick which to be better, you pick the O-line. And that's where Atlanta really took advantage of New Orleans today. Even though the sack totals won't show anything, lots of pressure coming into this game. This is wild. Because remember, the first 2 weeks, you were fine. But coming into this game, pressure-wise, Derek Carr's been pressured on 25% of his throws. And that's after 2 weeks of being great. That is the impact of McCoy being down. That's his impact. You have now gone up to a quarter of your pass plays being pass rushed. It's actually more than that because, again, we're calculating the first 2 weeks into that pass protection. Let's just say roughly 40% of every dropback is pressured right now. Got to get healthy on the O-line. Can't make mistakes. Cannot make mistakes. So, got to get healthy on the O-line. You can live with your D-line being okay. And that's what they are. They're okay. But you got to have good O-line play. You got to have good O-line play. Dana says, Clint has to gain a sense of urgency and let Carr work with moving pockets. I agree. And look, they were doing that the first 2 weeks, but you can't do that when you have all these injuries. I mean, Trevor Penning had a very bad game today. Then you had 2 replacement offensive linemen in. It was a rough one. It was a rough one. Say says, if we want to be a dominant defense, we need to emphasize putting the ball in the end zone as well. When they do get turnovers, they need to get their heads on swivel and block. Sure, but yeah, defensive touchdowns are great. I don't think that's what's going to take this team to the next level. I think playing fundamentally sound football consistently takes them to the next level and getting healthy. That's what matters for this team. He says, I just don't think we're good enough in crunch time and got to have it moments. In what way, though? Because I guess my question to rebut that, and I don't want to let this podcast go too long. My question would be, in what way? Because did the offense not find what they needed to do to march down the field and score the game-winning touchdown? It did. Exactly what they did. And then defense played a great last series, sans one play. One play, Paulson Debo, pass interference, 30 yards. It's stuff like this. It just goes back to what I said, fundamentally sound play. And this should have never happened because you shouldn't have given up 14 points. So, would you make a trade for an O-lineman? Who are you going to trade for, Zell? O-lineman is probably the thinnest position across the NFL. I'm not just being dramatic. There is basically no such thing as O-line depth anywhere. There is more depth along defensive lines on every team than basically offensive line on any team. Who are you going to trade for? You basically have to be trading for a starter. Who's going to give you a starting offensive lineman? They're so hard to find. They're so hard to create. Who are you going to trade for? Like, you got what you got. So, we'll see. Tim says it's called kick a field goal when you have a chance. Look, here's my only comment to that, Bim. Could Dennis Allen have kicked a field goal? Y'all, we can have this conversation if you want to. Remember, New Orleans gave it up on downs. Should they have kicked a field goal there? Here's my answer. And I am completely okay with anybody disagreeing. If you want to disagree, please comment after this video. Fine. But here's my response. For years, my biggest issue with Dennis Allen was how conservative he was and how he refused to take chances to win football games. That is how I was for Dennis Allen for a very long time. Today, he challenged plays when I wanted him to, and today he went for the touchdown. And he lost. But I cannot retroactively go back and say, well, now I'm going to get mad at him. Because for years, I wanted him to allow this team to be aggressive. Now the thing is, you got to succeed in being aggressive. I'm not mad at DA for that. That's growth. Is it me saying that I believe in DA to win a Super Bowl? No. But personally, am I mad about that? No. Could you have taken the 3 points? Yes, but that simply changes the complexity of what you're going to do then, right? Because if you had gone for the field goal here and got it, then you likely don't try to go for the touchdown here. You just go for the field goal, and you would have taken a 1 point lead. And then you would have lost 25-24 instead of 26-24. Because instead of going for it here, 3 minutes left, you just would have kicked a field goal. So you still would have lost. You just would have lost 25-24. I mean, I'm sorry, 26-23. Did you really change anything? Zell says, I thought Clint called the offense plays. Oh, he does. But head coaches usually will determine whether we go for it on fourth down. That is going to be a philosophy from the head coach. I'm kind of, y'all get where I'm coming from. Like, I'm not saying New Orleans shouldn't have won, couldn't have won. I'm just saying I'm not going to get mad at that being aggressive. Don't give up touchdowns on punt returns. As in, don't muff the punt inside the 5 and then give it away for a TD. Play fundamentally sound football. Go to Kansas City next week, find a way to win on the road against Kansas City. Then next week's games, you got Tampa versus Atlanta. I'm sorry, I'm rooting for Tampa to go 4-1. I hate to do it, but I am. Other games around the league you want to look at, obviously New Orleans. We got a Monday Nighter. We'll see how that works for stream and everything, but we got a Monday Nighter. Then we want the Steelers to beat the Cowboys. We want every NFC team to lose that can. We want the Giants to beat the Seahawks. We want the Packers to beat the Rams, or Rams to beat the Packers. Both of them are kind of fine. Doesn't matter on the Cardinals or 49ers. I am rooting for the Broncos. Hate me if you will. Go Broncos. You want the Browns to beat the Commanders. And let's see, I think that's it. I'm sorry, you got Bears, Panthers. That one doesn't really matter. Whoever. And then you want Aaron Rodgers to beat the Vikings somehow. But next week, let's see what it is. We'll see what film study looks like this week. Appreciate y'all coming by the podcast. Who dat? God bless. Love every single one of you. Catch you on the next one. Deuces. That's me. Whew. Can't wait to see my DMs after this one. Damn.